The story starts with Jensen Ames, who's an commercial employee and ex-convict. He learns that the metal mill in which he works is shutting down and won't be paying the people their complete wages. It's why the people are protesting in the front of the enterprise. As frustration the various people grows, anti-insurrection police arrive there. The police are responding to even the smallest provocation with violence. Whilst Jensen sees his co-people being overwhelmed, he steps in and fights lower back at some stage in the manner he is taking down a few officials with inside the chaos. Come on, by the point Jensen makes it domestic, it is already nighttime. He greets his spouse, after which is going upstairs to test on their child. However, he's absolutely unaware that a masked intruder has damaged into the residence. Even as Jensen is upstairs, the crook seizes the possibility to homicide his spouse with inside the kitchen. Whilst Jensen comes lower back downstairs, the person ambushes him from in the back of and knocks him subconscious earlier. Then leaving the intruder locations the homicide weapon in Jensen's hand and makes a taunting shooting gesture. Together along with his gloved hand, he had framed Jensen for the crime and left the residence. By the point time the police arrived there, Jensen wakes up moments later to locate the police arresting him for his spouse's homicide. 6 months later, Jensen is transferred to Terminal Island Jail. Upon arrival, he's greeted via way of means of Protect Rick, who sprays him with freezing water and additionally permits any other officer to hit him. After that, the Protect escorts Jensen to a mobile ULR shared with 3 different prisoners, purpose on beating him up. But whilst Ulrich returns later with inside the wish of taking part in the aftermath, he sees that Jensen is a professional fighter who has already knocked all his cellmates out bloodless. The following morning, Jensen heads to the mess corridor for breakfast. He is quietly discover. Doesn't he understand this, but this makes it clean for a person else to take his vicinity. In the back of the masks, Frank become a fan preferred and an iconic legend. That's why Hennessy has decided to maintain his loss of life a mystery. She wishes the parable of Frankenstein to stay on and revive the show's rankings in view that his passing. Hennessy tells Jensen that in line with the guidelines, a driving force earns their freedom after prevailing 5 races in view that Frankenstein had already gained. For Jensen might simplest want one greater victory to stable his launch. Notwithstanding the tempting prospect of freedom, Jensen hesitates due to the fact risking his lifestyles in a lethal race is not a selection he is taking gently. However, Hennessy may not take no for a solution. She threatens him with solitary confinement to make sure that he cannot display her mystery with inside the jail. Now Jensen is left and not using a desire, however, to accept as true with the provide. Jensen is then taken to the jail's vehicle mobile save, in which he meets Educate and his group, the mechanics answerable for retaining Frankenstein's automobile. They provide an explanation for the guidelines to Jensen. Each group operates independently and there may be no supporting every different. Jensen additionally notices a massive workshop in which Hennessy has been secretly constructing something for weeks. Simplest to choose few human beings, which includes Educate's group and a handful of guards. Understand Jensen is the brand new Frankenstein Hennessy's manipulate over the jail guarantees her mystery stays secure. After that, Educate introduces Jensen to his automobile. That's a closely modified Mustang V8 fastback. It is geared up with an array of offensive and protective devices. However, no ammunition is loaded on the auto till race day to save you prisoners from trying and break out. The Educate tells Jensen that escaping isn't an alternative from this hell because the jail is degrees. The intention is to take away as many combatants as viable with inside the very last degree. Velocity is the important thing to crossing the finish line first. Every motive force is assigned a navigator who's usually a girl added in from the women's facility. The only exception is Joe, who makes use of a crew member. Rather, he is infamous for transferring through lady navigators so quick that it makes even the target market uncomfortable. Then a crew member list starts off. Evolved briefing Jensen on the important thing: drivers with inside the race, all of whom are gift with inside the backyard. There may be 14K, who's a Triad member and MIT graduate. Then there may be Hector Grimm, who's a licensed psychopath who idolizes Hennessy too. After that we get brought with the aid of using Slovo Pachenko, who's the Aryan Brotherhood chief, and Travis Colt, who's a disgraced ex-NASCAR big name. Their communique is reduced quick while Joe and his team method Jensen. They insults Jensen and supply the message that this race is handiest among Joe and Frankenstein. Simply then a van arrives with inside the jail that's returning inmates from a peace place. Jensen notices something Eunice common approximately their wrists. They may be sporting GPS monitoring bracelets on their arms. The web page triggers an awareness to Jensen that the person who killed his spouse have been sporting one of these bracelets to the day of the primary race degree. In the end arrives, Jensen is given Frankenstein's garments, masks, or even his ring to finish the instruction. His look by myself attracts again the visitors the display had misplaced earlier. Then the sport begins off. Evolved the train advises Jensen to keep away from speak me to the different Drivers is preserving Frankenstein's silent mystique as a part of the act, but he is allowed to do away with the masks whilst inside the vehicle because the home windows are made from reflected glass and Case is already in on the name of the game as they put together for the race. Jensen asks Case why she's in jail. She exhibits that she killed a cop who become her very own husband. She killed him due to the fact he become abusive there. Communique is reduced quick because the race begins. The primary lap is not too violent as weapons may not set off till the 2D of the 3 laps. Nevertheless, the drivers do their pleasant to shove every different off the music to Case's expertise of the rot. Jensen manages to live neck and neck with Joe onto the front K9 left to 100 feet while Case spots a shortcut. She courses Jensen through it, which lets him to take the lead. As soon as the second one lap begins off evolved Hennessy turns on the shields and guns set off swords and shields. Now the drivers should steer their vehicles over unique manholes, hitting all 4 wheels to allow their attacking devices. Chaos erupts because the race becomes a full-scale conflict. Additionally, Hennessy ups the stakes through activating the demise heads, which might be sincerely the lethal boundaries located strategically at the song. A motive force named Grim makes use of them to his benefit and kills a minor motive force through slamming his vehicle into one of the traps. He then slows Joe down through taking pictures oil at his vehicle and quickly knocks him returned. However, Grim's reign is short-lived. Quickly 14K takes him out through launching a missile and forcing Grim off the song. His vehicle crashes and Grim comes out of it. Joe finishes him off through walking over. At some point of the race, Jensen manages to spark off the guns. However, his device gun JY Case bravely climbs onto the hood to repair it. However, this attracts a hail of bullets from the alternative time. The rear shield is quick, carrying down through the bullets being fired at. Thinking fast, Jensen comes up with an unstable plan. He instructs Case to unhook the napalm canister and take a seat down on his lap. Then he ejects her seat that is now sporting the napalm, and it is fell directly at Colt's vehicle. The napalm smashes into Colt's car and Case follows up through throwing the auto's lighter, igniting the napalm and placing Colt's vehicle on hearth place with Colt removed. Jensen once more faces Joe head to head. All at once, Jensen notices Penko creating an acquainted hand gesture. It's Miles, the identical one the person who killed his spouse made earlier than fleeing the scene. Distracted through this vision, Jensen loses focus. Joe seizes the possibility and slams Jensen's vehicle, which forces him into remaining vicinity. Even as Pachenko claims first through the cease of the race, 3 drivers are lifeless and 6 continue to be for the subsequent degree returned on the storage. Educate and his group look at the auto and discover no troubles with the devices. They are baffled as to why the structures failed in the course of the race. Jensen is now pissed off and suspicious. Approximately Hennessy, he confronts her after a while and accuses her of making plans. The whole thing from framing him for his spouse's homicide, rigging the race, and the use of Penko to trap him into taking on his Frankenstein. Hennessy would not verify his suspicions, however counters with some other danger. She indicates Jensen an image of his daughter who's now in a foster domestic. Hennessy reminds Jensen that if he desires to see his daughter once more, he desires to play alongside in the death race recreation. As Jensen is not able to do a whole lot approximately Hennessy's threats, he returns to the backyard and chats with Coach. Jensen asks why Teach would not put on a prisoner quantity, so Teach explains that he is technically now no longer a prisoner anymore as he certified killed his spouse later that night. Even as operating on his automobile, Jensen spots Penko on foot through and comes to a decision to observe him to his team's pit. There, Jensen is ambushed through PKO's guys. Penko lands some punches on Jensen earlier than grabbing a heavy device. My lifestyles, he intends to damage Jensen's head with this heavy device regardless of understanding he is below Hennessy's safety. However, earlier than Penko can strike, Lists intervenes and stabs Penko with inside the lower back with a pen. Seizing the instant, Jensen grabs a metallic stick from the floor and makes use of it to stab one in every of PKO's guys. He then knocks out his captors, after which turns his interest to Penko. He begins off evolved punching Penko, throwing him into close by gadget and slamming him into crates. Sooner or later, Penko admits that Hennessy ordered him to kill Jensen's spouse and that Rebecome is the only who delivered him to the residence. Simply as Jensen is ready to supply a deadly blow, Olish and some other protect arrive there and split the combat, pulling Jensen away the following day. Simply earlier than the second 1 degree of the race starts off, evolved Penko taunts Jensen once more, repeating the identical hand gesture that haunted him the nighttime his spouse changed into killed. This time whilst the race starts off evolved, Jensen intentionally begins off evolved using slowly and takes a tunnel to have a non-public communique with Case. With inside the tunnel, Jensen accuses Case of in all likelihood killing the actual Frankenstein. Did you kill the antique Frank? What he factors out the suspicious failure of the automobile's gadgets in consecutive races. Whilst she hesitates to reply, Jensen threatens to eject her from the automobile if she does not respond to him. Simply seeing this example confesses that she sabotaged Frank's rear weapons under Hennessy's orders. Truly she changed into lured through the promise of her freedom, she insists. Unequaled in electricity appears via the song, hastily catching up with the racers and without delay obliterating minor competition. Its sheer length and firepower supply it any other advantage. Furthermore, it is allowed to go into homes at the path, which allows it to take a shortcut and reappear on the front of the race. The dreadnought methodically goals 14K's navigator and slowly tortures him earlier than the use of chains to seize his vehicle and hearthplace at it till it bursts into flames, with most effective Jensen and Joe closing the race. Seems not possible to win without a plan. Simply then Jensen asks Lists to attach his communicator to Joe's vehicle and the two conform to shape an alliance. Collectively they flank the dreadnought and assuredly dodges its relentless assaults. Once they come upon a lure manhole, each drivers hit it with wheels to prompt the trap and pressure the dreadnought to crash into it. With the dreadnought disabled, the second 1 degree ends. Simplest Jensen and Joe at the moment are left to continue to the very last race. Later that nighttime, Joe processes Jensen in the pit. He notes that Jensen's voice suspiciously resembles Frank's. In the meantime, Hennessy and Reed determine that Jensen need to be removed with inside the very last recreation the following day. Simply earlier than the very last degree of the race starts, OL locations a bomb beneath Jensen's vehicle. Even as Hennessy distracts anybody with a speech approximately racing being their cause, as she mentions that this may be the primary time a person wins their freedom. With a fifth victory, Jensen realizes something stressful. He thinks that Hennessy has rigged the races all alongside to do away with anybody who should win a fifth time. Nobody has ever reached that milestone due to the structure's manipulation, meaning like all of the others earlier than him, he may not be allowed to win nowadays. Both teach has additionally heard Jensen's attention. Approximately the R.A. case well known shows that Hennessy additionally spoke to her and requested her to forestall Jensen if he had been approximately to win. Jensen isn't concerned. 11 Though while the race starts, Reich manipulates the manholes. He most effective turns on the manholes while Joe drives over them, then reopens hearthplace on Jensen and damages his again shield so seriously that he is pressured to drop it, but Joe already is aware of a way to avoid such assaults, having found out from Frank's beyond hints. Hennessy, keen to hold the target market engaged, turns on a protection manhole for Jensen. However, Joe counters with a rocket that destroys it. Joe maintains launching rockets at Jensen, however Jensen skillfully dodges them, allowing them to crash right into a wall. That's an vintage weak point from Grimm's dying Jay and Joe had deliberate this second the rockets hit the partition's vulnerable factor, subsequently beginning a hollow massive sufficient for the two of them to break out, as opposed to racing for victory or staying in the sport they have engineered their very last act of rise up. That's escaping the prison and breaking free from the machine. Hennessy managed in a healthy of rage. Hennessy ends the circulation and sends each to be a cop after Jensen, and he or she then presses the detonator for the bomb beneath Jensen's vehicle, but her plan fails due to the fact Teach and his team have already eliminated and deactivated the bomb. In the meantime, Jensen and Joe velocity towards the bridge, however the police vehicles are remaining, and it is time for the following a part of their breakout plan. Jensen releases the greater 1/2 gallon reserve tank, which he had deliberate to drop in advance. The tank hits the pursuing police vehicles, inflicting an explosion and a fiery wall that blocks the course of police and forestalls any extra cars from following them. The two convicts controlled to make it throughout the bridge gates. They then break up. Assured they'll permit her cross as soon as it is throughout. As they power beyond creation cranes, Jensen takes the possibility to jump off the auto and cover underneath their shadows. Case takes over the wheel and drives a touch farther earlier than the helicopters pressure her to forestall with a wall of hearthplace while she exits the auto together along with her palms raised in give up. She's carrying Frank's garments and masks, so now she has taken his area. This twist leaves absolutely each person careworn. The case is now assuming the identification of Frankenstein and supporting Jensen to get away from Hennessy's grip. Case is arrested via way of means of the law enforcement officials and brought lower back to jail. Whilst Jensen efficiently escapes, he meets up with Joe and the two board to educate collectively, leaving the chaos at the back of them. In the meantime, with inside the jail workplaces re-watches because the scores jump to new heights with congratulatory items already rolling, and he opens a present field most effective to locate it carries the bomb that R himself had planted beneath Jensen's automobile. Simply then the bomb detonates, killing each Ree and Hennessy with inside the explosion. Out of doors, Teach may be visible having activated the detonator, making sure that the two corrupt figures are taken down. 6 months later, Jensen and Joe have settled in Santa Rosalia, Mexico. They began out clean with a brand new existence. They now run their personal car store, running collectively as mechanics. Jensen has regained custody of his daughter, and the whole thing appears to have fallen into area. Cases likewise now loose. After her launch papers have been ultimately processed, she visits Then brings a racing automobile for them to test out.